All right, welcome to the Arch Conservative podcast number 3. I'm the editor in chief here, Braden Dean. Just want to thank y'all for joining us. As I said, if you didn't hear the previous one, going into the summer format, a few of these might just be me doing it on my own as we work to get Henry in online, see how the audio sounds with all that. We'll get that sorted. But for now, I wanted to hop in on the content for today. A lot has gone on since the last podcast, and so I'm obviously not going to be able to cover all of it. But I'll talk about some of the more recent stuff, and then one that did happen almost a month ago, but it kind of hits close for me personally. So I still wanted to talk about it. But first, I think what everyone in the nation is thinking about and is just breaking everyone's heart and is genuinely a travesty and an act of evil that cannot be comprehended. The Uvalde, Texas shooting happened, I think, last week. Just an evil that cannot be fathomed by the mind. This young man went and shot his own grandmother before driving, shooting at a nursing home, crashing into a ditch outside the school, entering and slaughtering 19 people, 18 of which were children and one adult. I mean, this is something that is just, once again, you can't comprehend it, and for it to happen to anyone is a travesty. And obviously, the hearts of every American break for the families of the victims, and we will be praying for them. Um, I actually in this podcast, I didn't want to focus primarily on the shooting itself, the facts around it, the failure of the police to actually respond and to act quickly to stop this and save more lives. I didn't want to focus on that, and one reason was just simply people have done that already. As I said, it's been a week. People more qualified, people with more knowledge of the situation have done that. They've given their piece. Same thing with policy. I don't really want to talk about policy in the sense of I'm not going to go through the gun control and Second Amendment debate. People have done that. Both very intelligent people on both sides have argued one way or another. I just don't want to focus on that because it's something that I've seen after this from both my peers and the president himself. And it breaks my heart because following something like this, we can genuinely get united around this. I mean, nobody wants this to happen. Everyone in America sees this as what it is, which is an act of extraordinary evil that we want to prevent. We want to protect children. We want kids to be able to go to school and feel safe and have a learning environment. We don't want people to just get slaughtered. I mean, this is a moment where all Americans can come together and say, yes, that is an act of evil that we never want to see happen again. And what just really breaks my heart is that the rhetoric around this is preventing that from even happening. I mean, immediately, in terms of national politics, we had the president come out and say that, we have to do something, and that, you're either, basically getting paid off by the NRA, or you basically really don't care about dead kids if you don't want Joe Biden's particular policy to be done. And I think that's horrible. I think it's evil. And maybe this should be expected of politicians. Maybe this should be something that we just expect. After all, politicians want to get their own policy done, so they're going to twist things. They're going to shift it in a way where it sounds best for them, so that they can get their policy through. Maybe I'm just overreacting, over focusing. Republican leaders probably would do the same thing. But looking around on social media it's what my peers are saying that really gets to me, because they're saying the same thing. And they're not in a political position. They're not in a position of power, or maybe you could say they're trying to manipulate to get, which is, first of all, horrible in of itself. But maybe you could at least say, oh, it's only a small minority of people who are claiming that. But I'm going to Instagram and I'm seeing my peers post things that imply this, where it's saying something to the effect of, if you're defending guns over the lives of children, you're on the wrong side. And I read that and I just think they can't actually believe that. I mean, they genuinely can't. If you genuinely believe in your heart of hearts that if someone you know or even don't know disagrees with you about guns, that means that they don't care about dead children. That is a horrible thing to believe about another person. A genuinely horrible and malevolent thing to think about someone else because they don't agree with your prescription of policy that therefore they want kids to die or they're in the pockets of some nefarious NRA organization. I think that that's a very wrong thing to do, and it's only going to divide us and prevent actual discussion from happening. I try to tell my conservative friends about this sometimes, which is, you know, if any of you know who Ben Shapiro is, he has this saying, facts don't care about your feelings. And that's most certainly true. They don't. But the truth is, if people hate you, they're not going to listen to you. And when you're talking with someone and you're trying to have a conversation, the worst thing you can do is start attacking that person as who they are. In other words, saying you're stupid or you're this, you're an idiot, or you're evil, or whatever it may be. When you start attacking that person as a character, then now it's no longer they can separate their personal beliefs with who they are. You've associated the two. So now by associating their policy with their person, they now are defending themselves as a human, and they're saying, "Oh, if I change on this, or if you're saying that by believing X, I am an evil person, then why would I change my beliefs because you're attacking me as a person?" It's the same thing with this. It's going to prevent actual change from occurring because there's things that we can agree on. Red flag laws, implementing higher school security, having security personnel at every single public and private school. Things like that are something that people can get behind. And if we talked with each other in a reasonable fashion and didn't just decry each other as evil, then I think that we could actually get stuff like that done. But it genuinely breaks my heart to see that. And maybe they don't realize what they're saying, but I don't think it's that they don't realize it. I think they realize what they're saying, but they think that there's some righteousness in it. They think that it's righteous to say, you don't care. It's the same thing with abortion, where people will say, you just want to control women's bodies. It's you have to, in other words, you cannot disagree with me without having some nefarious motivation. I like for the gun control advocates, I don't think that they're I don't think that all of them are malevolent. I don't think a vast majority of them are necessarily malevolent. I think that they see what's going on and they have what every single one of us has, which is a gut wrenching in you when you see stuff like this happen, and their minds go to, how can we stop this? What is the best way that we can just say this is never going to happen again? And that's where their mind goes. I might think they're wrong, but I don't think they're malevolent. I don't think they're morally corrupt for that. But when you throw that at people who might disagree with gun control or who might disagree with certain policy, it really turns people against you. Like just from a strategy standpoint, like let's not even talk about the morality of decrying people that you don't know as morally bankrupt and wanting or not caring about dead children for disagreeing with you. Let's put the morality of that aside. Just strategically, it's not smart because you're alienating those people. It's something that Trump did. Trump was great at getting people who already agreed with him to get fired up and to support him. But he did a hell of a job better of getting people who disagreed with him to disagree with him even more and to hate him even more. And it was his ultimate undoing. So when we're trying to have these conversations, let's just come with each other with a baseline understanding of this other person. We can both start with the premise that we don't want children to die. We both can start here. And if we can at least agree on that, then I think that our discussions will be better because then it will be, okay, well, why do you think it's not going to work? It's not going to be a personal attack of, oh, you're just being bought off by the NRA or you don't actually really care about this issue. There actually could be conversations and we can say, okay, what's going to protect our kids the most? What's going to both protect our rights as Americans and protect children? Because there are solutions that do both of those. I just think that right now there's so much um, emotion. And once again, I get it. I think all of us are just like have had that freeze moment when we saw this travesty occur and just didn't know what to do. And so many of us as Americans just wanted to say, how can we ensure that something like this never happens again? And we want a simple answer. We want something that's going to be easy. And it's like, okay, we just got to ban them, or we have to do this, or we have to, whatever it is. We all immediately went into our minds of how can we stop this from happening again? And I think that's what's important, whether you're Democrat, Republican, whether you're a politician or someone who doesn't vote at all. We all look at this and go, yeah, how do we stop that from happening? And if we disagree on that, then that's a part of um, living in a body politic together. That's just a part of it. And if we can just disagree while recognizing the humanity of the other person, that yes, we actually both do care about whether or not children die. And we both are coming to the table with the goal of protecting kids. If we can do that, then our conversations are going to be so much more, not just civil, but productive in the first place. So once again, horrible travesty. Praying for everyone there. If we could move on, opening up with a very tough topic can kind of be difficult to segue from, so there's no great way to do it. But transitioning to something that is somewhat similar, I would say, except with a lot less high stakes, is something as horrible as what happened in Texas. But about a month ago, uh, Rick Riordan, the author of Percy Jackson, and for many people my age and a little bit older, and then obviously a little bit younger, Percy Jackson was what a lot of us grew up on in terms of book lovers. I know I myself, Percy Jackson was the first series that I actually really loved reading. Um, and I've reread it probably 5 or 6 times in my life. I love Percy Jackson. It is my favorite book series. Um, and it's something that I'm always going to treasure close to my heart. But Rick Riordan announced the new casting for the Disney Plus TV show. And before I get into that, I want to kind of give a little bit of a build up for people who aren't as avid Percy Jackson fans, like me. But about a few years ago, I think back in maybe 2014, maybe earlier than that, but uh, the Percy Jackson books, they made a movie, two, both of which were horrible, and the Percy Jackson fan base really went after it because it was inaccurate. The actors they hired were significantly older than what they're described in the book. There was a bunch of continuity errors. The second book, they basically try to shove the entire Olympian series into one movie, which is just a mistake. Don't do that. And so a lot of people were rightly, including myself, were rightly upset about what they did to this beloved book series. And the biggest problem we had with it was character continuity with the books. In other words, it was their age. They're not the age of the book. Um, even things like, even as simple as Alexandra Daddario, her hair was dark in the first movie, and fans said Annabeth is blonde. Her eyes were a bright blue, and I know a lot of people were like, Anakin's eyes are gray. And so there was a lot of problems that people had with it, not to mention, obviously, in the second movie where I think they just all gave up and threw everything in there. So there was a lot of problems with it. But we were kind of all excited when Rick Riordan said, hey, we're going to be doing it. I mean, I remember, gosh, announcing this. Was it back in 2018 or 2019? But I've been keeping up with this for years, being really excited about it, knowing that he's going to be working hand in glove with it. He said he's going to be on the team, making sure that it's done right this time. And I know a lot of people were excited about it. And last month, so that's kind of the build up to all of this, the excitement, the anticipation, the disappointment with the first attempt, all of that's important to know for people who are not Percy Jackson fans. And I even think for people who are Percy Jackson fans, it's good to remember the lead up to this. So then last month, they announced the new cast. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know because most of these are kid actors. So I didn't really know him. Even uh, what was his name? Let me see. The guy playing Percy, Walker Scobell. I didn't really know who he is. I had to look him up, and he was the kid who played the young Ryan Reynolds. So I mean, I can't say that I'm well versed in actors, especially very young ones. So I don't know, what they've been in. They all could be very fine actors. I just really don't keep up with that kind of stuff. But I wanted to address the Annabeth character casting, and not necessarily in the way that some of you may suspect me to. Um, uh, Leah, I believe is how you pronounce it. Yeah, Leah Jeffries is the girl playing who was casted as Annabeth. And she is black with dark hair, and Annabeth, as described in the book, white, gray eyes, blonde hair. And so some fans started to say, well, hey, you know, one of the big things that we were upset about last time was, character continuity. We want the characters to look like they do in the book. So why are you casting a, young, or why are you casting a black with dark hair girl instead of, a white with blonde hair and gray eyes? And they might, I've saw some people say that they might, dye her hair blonde and, do gray contacts. And that's great. But once again, that's not necessarily what I wanted to focus on, because I know a lot of people get focused on that part, and I understand. But what really upset me, and honestly, what really got under my skin, and this really upset me, I was furious for a long time, was Rick Riordan's response to this. And Rick Riordan said that you're judging her appropriateness for this role solely and exclusively on how she looks. She is a black girl playing someone who was described in the books as white. Friends, that is racism. So there's a lot to unpack here. Uh, I'll address the accusation of racism first, and then kind of explain backwards why this is wrong and why this really infuriated me. People who read, okay, so the accusation of racism itself. So he's saying that people are saying, okay, see, she's black, described in the character as white. We wanted someone who looked like they were described in the books. Is that racist? Well, no, it's not, because a part of casting, when you're casting someone, generally, now there's a lot of things you're trying to do when you're casting for a character, including how well do they if a character is described as introverted and shy, how well do they, or how well are they introverted, how well do they kind of give off that shy vibe. Same thing if, okay, they're witty, they're quick, how well do they handle that. So obviously different stuff like that obviously matters, but that's not everything. Okay, that's a part of it, and definitely that's an important part. The actual attributes of a character. So Annabeth, she's wise. She's the daughter of Athena, so she's wise. She's strategic. She's very naturally, especially with Percy, they work very well together in leadership. So Annabeth has all these great attributes, these great characteristics that make her one of the most lovable characters in the entire series. And so those are the attributes. But then obviously a character has the physical attributes. So Annabeth's a woman, she's girl at the beginning, and she grows into a woman. In the book, she's white, she's slightly taller than Percy. She's gray eyes, blonde hair. Like, there's the physical attributes. And so we'll talk about the and I know this is going into detail a lot, but I think it's important because it connects to what we're seeing in other genres that's happening too. And both of these are important. The physical attributes are important, and so are the actual characteristics of the character, the attributes. Because and here's why, and I don't know why I have to explain this to people who claim to love books and who claim to love the original. When you're watching a TV show that's depicting a novel, you want to be transported to the world of the book. You want to look at the screen and immediately think of, Camp Half Blood. Like, wow, I see those characters and boom, I'm in the world. So, for example, and this is just another, they have orange T-shirts, Camp Half Blood. That's something that is ingrained in everyone's mind. Orange T-shirts. Let's say they made the T-shirts green. Okay, that's actually pretty insignificant in terms of the grand scheme of the entire story. Like nothing else in the story, the color of the T-shirts would affect nothing. It would affect nothing in the story. But Percy Jackson book fans would justly be like, well, why did you change that? We wanted continuity. We wanted canon. The T-shirts are described as orange. Why are they green? Once again, affecting the story, not at all. It would not change the way the characters interacted. It would not, none of that would be changed, but book fans would get upset because of it. And the reason why I point that out is because it's similar when it comes to the way characters look. And I'll use other physical attribute examples to make this point. Once again, Alexandra Daddario, she was white. She got, maybe not her personally, and if obviously she personally got attacked, and it's the same thing with Leah Jeffries. If Leah Jeffries is getting personally attacked as a person because of this, then obviously that's wrong. And people who do that shouldn't do that. That's a wrong thing to do. Don't attack a 12-year-old because she was casted in a role. That is a horrible thing to do. It's stupid. It's wrong. Don't do that. But Alexandra Daddario, as depicting Annabeth, people were, called it out and saying, why is her hair dark? Like, why is that? Once again, does Annabeth's hair per se affect the characteristics of Annabeth? No. Like, Annabeth could be just as wise. She could be just as strategic as she is in the books, and her hair could be dark. But fans are looking for that continuity. They want to look at the screen and immediately be transported to that world. Visual cues are very important in a TV show. And when we read the books, we have these ideas of the characters in our head, and that's where we go to when we think of them. So people call that out. Same thing with the blue eyes. She had bright blue eyes, and people thought, why does she not have gray eyes? Just for a personal example, when me and my friend first saw the casting, when we saw that Walker had been picked as Percy Jackson, literally the first thing we said was, well, Percy has dark hair. Some of you might not know, Walker has blonde hair, or maybe like a dirty blonde. But the first thing we said was, Percy has dark hair. Now we're not attacking Walker for not for not having dark hair. And we were like, well, hopefully, and we even said, hopefully they either dye his hair or have a wig on, because we want the cast to look at least somewhat or close to, preferably on point to the way they're described in the book, so that we can get that immersion into the series. So why do I say all this? Because saying, listen, you're casting Annabeth as now a black girl. In the book, she's described as white. So when growing up, when reading about this series multiple times over and over and over again, we see this character, the way we think about her, the way she's depicted even on cover art, is this certain way. She's, once again, she's white, she's blonde. It has nothing to do per se with, uniquely her being black per se is the problem. In other words, like, once again, with white actors, it's the same thing. Like Alexandra Daddario, she was white and people were still upset. Why are you not blonde? Why do you not have, or why did you not dye your hair? Why did they not dye your hair? Why do you not have gray eyes? People still were upset about that kind of stuff because they want that continuity. And I say all that to come around to, I think that what Rick Riordan is doing is such virtue signaling nonsense. I think if he had come out and said, listen, I know, like, if he had come out from a place of understanding and said, listen, I know a lot of my readers, they have been dedicated fans who made me who I am, by the way. They made me actually famous. They made me be in a position where I can have a TV show on Disney Plus. If he came out and said, I understand that y'all wanted, the characters to really look similar to the way they were in the books, and you were upset in the movies that they didn't do that right. So I understand where you're coming from. However, as the author, I do not think that that matters as much to me as how they depict the attributes of a character, how they depict for Annabeth, once again, the wisdom, or her interactions with Walker as being Percy. That mattered more to me than her physical descriptions in the book. And if he had said that, I might even say, okay, I think you're wrong. I like, once again, I want it to be as close to the books as nearly possible. I want the orange Camp Half-Blood shirts to be orange. I want, Annabeth to have gray eyes, blonde hair. I want Percy to have dark hair. So I could disagree with that. I want the characters to actually be kids. Like, he could have said that, and I could say, well, I think you're wrong. I do value both of those, and I think that you can get both of those. But I would have respected it. I would have said, okay, well, even though I disagree with him, at least he's coming out and defending it, on the merits. He's saying, once again, I understand where you're coming from. He's coming from a place of understanding of, yes, you want this because you want, the physical traits to be continuity. That just doesn't matter as much to me. Once again, could have disagreed with it, and I would have actually been fine with it. But him coming out and saying, if you don't like this casting, you are racist. It's horrible. It's so horrible. It's such woke virtue signaling, and it drives me up a wall because it's a betrayal to the fans who do love it. I mean, I loved Percy Jackson growing up. I loved all that. And for him just to come out and say, yes, you are now racist because you disagree with me, or you disagree with the casting, or you wanted it to be a certain way, I just think it's horrible. And once again, if people are out there attacking Leah Jeffries, as a person, if they're saying you're a horrible person, then yes, that's horrible, and people shouldn't do that. Don't go after a young girl because she was casted. Don't do that. But if people are saying we wanted her to be, white with blonde hair because that's the way she's described in the book, that's not racism. That's simply wanting continuity. Just like, okay, different genre, but same point. In Harry Potter, I remember after reading the books and then watching the movies, thinking to myself, well, Harry's supposed to have green eyes, and he doesn't have green eyes in them, and that's something that people pointed out, like, oh, Harry doesn't have green eyes. He's supposed to have green eyes because they're supposed to look like his mother's. And I say all this, and people may say, well, that's different than wanting someone's race to be different. Listen, if you can just say, or at least recognize that if someone doesn't like the casting or wants it to be aligned with what the book describes, that doesn't mean that they're racist. Just like, you could flip this around the other way. If there was a black character and they made the character white, people would be furious about it. They would be upset. They would call it whitewashing. They would, be up in an uproar. And I would be upset too. If a character that I love, I told my friend about this, keeping it with Percy Jackson. I think of Grover as the way he was depicted in the first movie. That's the way that I see him now. So, black with kind of curly hair, a little goatee. Like, that's how I think of Grover now. That's how he is in my mind. And if they were to suddenly change that and go off the rails with that, then yeah, I'd be upset too, because that's how I think of him. That's the way I see him. When I think of Percy Jackson, that is how I see Grover. So just, if we can recognize that people aren't necessarily racist because they want the casting to be a certain way, that what they truly care about is, yes, obviously the physical attributes of a character's continuity, but also that physical continuity, I think that the community would be so much better off. Well, I ranted about both of those topics longer than I expected to, but that's all the time that we have for today. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the podcast, and I look forward to talking with you next time.